In 2007, this robot was on the cover of the Scientific American next to a headline, Dawn of the Age of the Robots. And the story was written by nobody less than Bill Gates, co-founder of Microsoft Systems, musing about the future of robots. He predicted that in the future, every household will have a robot, and we will be surrounded by robots for sooner than we know it. And he was right. If we look at the robotic industry that has been rapidly growing, we see now robots in all sorts of areas of life. We have cleaning robots in households. We have delivery robots in factories. We have harvesting robots. We have robots in elder care settings and hospitals. We have robots underground, above ground, on Earth, in space, you name it. Robots are everywhere. Some people even imagine daring applications such as nanorobots inside of your body, looking for cancer cells, trying to find them and destroy them. And those are serious discussions these days. From when Bill Gates wrote the article till now, we've seen the robot industry grow a lot. And part of what we need to do in this growing industry is to ensure that robots will interact with people in a nice and proper fashion. This is part of what our work is at Tufts. Our work is all about. Our goal is to make interactions with these robots that are becoming increasingly social robots as easy and natural as possible. This includes, for example, allowing robots to understand natural language, allowing us to instruct them in natural language just the way we would do it with fellow humans, instead of using, say, a programming language. It also includes making robots sensitive to our social standards and principles. After all, we don't want to change our ways of being just because it may be easier from a programming perspective to not put that into systems. To study now these interactions, we follow a three-phase research program. The first phase is to study human expectations and needs. What do humans expect about robots? What would they like to do with robots? We need to find out whether they are willing to do certain tasks with robots or not. The second phase, we take those needs and expectations and we start looking at ways to implement algorithms that can perform these activities. And we implement them on robots. For example, we are developing algorithms to deal with indirect speech acts. Those are speech acts where the literal meaning is not the meaning that's intended, such as in a question like, do you know what time it is? Just saying yes would not bode well for the robot. And then finally, we also conduct evaluation experiments where we put people with robots in an interaction context where we evaluate exactly those features that we've implemented. So let me give you now brief examples for all three phases of our research. For the first phase, I would like to give you an example of work we've done with people with Parkinson's disease. In this case, we're interested in finding out whether we can use robots to administer health questionnaires. Those are critical questionnaires for them to be able to track disease progression and adopt medication, yet they're expensive and people would have to go into the doctor's office, which can be taxing for them. So what you will see here is now a robot performing the first part of such an interview. And note that the person that the robot's interacting with is somebody who's never interacted with a robot before.
Okay.
Hello, my name is Willie.
It's nice to meet you.
Same
I
here.
will be conducting this half of the survey. Let me sit down. Today, we will be discussing to what extent Parkinson's has been affecting your life. I will ask you a series of questions, and you can answer with any of the responses written on the card on the table. Those responses are always, often, sometimes, rarely, or never. When you answer your questions, please speak loudly and clearly so that I can hear you. Are you ready to start?
Yes.
Okay. Here is the first question. Due to having Parkinson's disease, How often during the past 30 days have you had difficulty looking after your home? For example, housework, cooking, or yard work?
Often.
Okay.
And the interview continues. For the second example, I would like to show you an example of a robotic control system that we're developing for robots that can perform search and rescue missions and can be sent into areas that are too dangerous for humans to go to. In this particular case, you will see a robot that can be given instructions in natural language. It can take these natural language instructions, perform a task, and it can even learn new capabilities on the fly. It will engage its human operator in natural language dialogues, gather information about the task, and when it has all the information it needs to complete the task, it will go off and just do it.
Cindy, Commander Z really needs a medical kit. There should be one in the room you are in.
Okay. Understood. The commander really needs a medical. I should have that before him?
Yes, he's in the room with the green door.
Okay. I'll get one for him. What does it look like?
It is a white box with a red cross on it.
Okay.
So now we sped it up because this takes quite a while. We drive the robot slowly for safety reasons, but notice that the robot specifically asked what the medical kit looked like. It didn't know that beforehand. The person told it in natural language what it looked like, and that's all the robot needed in order to be able to detect it and then retrieve it. The third example I would like to give you is an example where we actually will do a live interaction here with a robot that my graduate student Gordon Briggs will show you. And this is an interaction with a simple moral robot. So you might ask yourself, why do we need simple moral robots? Well, if you put morals into human societies, right, if the robots, the future robots as we foresee them happening, will be embedded in our society, they will encounter situations that are morally challenging. And if they don't have moral competence, if they're not able to reason through these situations and come up with sound moral decisions, they will cause more harm than necessary. And let me give you two examples of robots that you might have heard of. One is a very familiar sounding robot, namely an autonomously driving car. Imagine a car driving in an urban environment, busy street, say, in a city, and all of a sudden a pedestrian crosses in front of the car very quickly. The car can determine that it is not enough time to brake. So it might actually look at ways to avoid the pedestrian. But suppose there's oncoming traffic. What's the car supposed to do? It cannot veer to the left. Should it just run over the pedestrian? And what would a human driver do in that case? Another example comes from an elder care setting. This is much discussed in robotics and is internationally a big driver of the robotic industry. Imagine you have an elderly person that's in pain, and you have a robot that's supposed to provide the best possible care for that person, keeping the person pain-free as much as possible. Person asks for pain medication, and the robot immediately tries to contact its supervisor because it has a rule to never administer any medication without contacting the supervisor. But the connection is down. It cannot get to the supervisor. What's the robot supposed to do? Let the person suffer? What if the robot knew that the medication was safe to take? Should it just still do it? And then how would it subsequently justify its actions? I said in the beginning that our goal is to make interactions with future robots as easy and natural as possible. But in addition, we also have to ensure that these robots live up to our social standards and moral principles, and that they're sensitive of our moral principles and have at least some rudimentary capability to judge them. Otherwise, they will cause people harm. So in the beginning, I started making the case that robots will be in our deeply embedded in our society. And in my lab at Tufts, we embrace a future where humans and robots live together and work together. And we are at the forefront at Tufts in human-robot interaction research. In particular, we are leading the way in developing robots that are sensitive to moral concerns, that can reason through morally complicated situations. This is research that is hard, but we need to start it now. Thank you. And so next I would like to get Gordon to come up here and show you our little now robot. He will briefly explain what you're about to see. We are really trying something new here, doing a live robot demo. What you will see here is a completely autonomous robot. Gordon.
Right, well, thank you. Well, as Matthias has said, that I will be showing you an interaction with a robot that has some simple reasoning capabilities, and this is to give you an example of the type of moral situation that we want to study and are interested in further researching at the Tufts Human Robot Interaction Laboratory. I'll be giving this robot some basic instructions in natural language, and we should note that actually we did not build this robot, but we did program it and give it its artificial intelligence, or AI. And the particular facet of the AI that we want to highlight in this demo is its ability to reason about the effects of certain actions. And we want, the robot will refuse to, or won't execute actions where it believes that the effects can have potentially negative consequences, such as harm to itself. Oh, well, there we go. And the human, and it will convey these concerns to the human. The human must then address this by either changing the instruction or well, it's tracking me now. By either changing the instruction or giving a reason as to why that effect will not occur in this particular instance. And so this is an example of the type of interaction pattern we think will be very commonplace when we have robots in the future that hopefully are able to reason about these sorts of moral concerns. All right, so with that, okay. Sit down.
Okay. Okay.
Walk forward.
Sorry, I cannot do that as there is no support ahead.
Walk forward.
But it is unsafe.
I will catch you. Walk forward.
Okay. Okay.
All right.